So, welcome everyone. It's lovely to welcome you all here to this Data Lab Community and Data Lab Academy webinar on data and AI in law, insights, innovations and ethical considerations. So a warm welcome too to our panel today, Sarah McCleary, Birgit Schippers and John Forsyth. So just before we get started, we've got a lot to talk about and not a lot of time. So just a little bit of background. This is a community event, Data Lab community event. And if you'd like to join the community, you can see the little QR code at the bottom of the screen. The community has been running since 2001 and there's over 6,000 people in it. So welcome into this great network if this is the first time that you've been here. My name's Marianne Dunbar. I work in the Data Lab in the Skills section and I manage our MSc programme. We have supported 1,100 odd, nearly 1,200 students through their master's programmes for the last 9 years. And in addition to supporting that academic training, we also run a programme where we support our students to develop soft skills and widen their network and also gain understanding of the sectors out there where their skills, their data and AI skills are relevant. But that's not just our audience, so welcome to everyone that's here. We'll have some students, we've got a mixture. So we haven't got much time, so we'll get started. Please save your questions for the end or pop them in the Q&A button and then we'll come back to them at the end. Hopefully we'll have 10 minutes where we can address your questions. So let's get started. I'm just going to ask each of our panelists to introduce themselves, give us a little bit of background to their current role and their journey to getting where they are today. So Sarah, could I please ask you to kick us off?
Yeah, of course. Thanks, Marianne. So as Marianne said, my name's Sarah McCleary. I am a senior legal technologist currently working with Addleshaw Goddard. I have been in the sort of new law legal technology industry for coming up to 7 years now. So my background is I went to uni, done law, thought I was going to go down the traditional route. And then when I was in my third year at uni, I done a placement into legal technology and pretty much from the off knew that that's what I wanted to do. So when I finished uni, I went into sort of paralegal kind of work and I've held kind of quite a few different new law roles. So I've done legal project management, legal process improvement, paralegal work, obviously now in the legal technology space. So yeah, I've held a few different roles, but have used legal technology right from the get-go. So I've been using legal technology in different capacities over the last 7 years. And yeah, that's me.
Thank you so much. Birgit, can you let us know where you've come from?
Yes, thanks very much. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Dr. Birgit Schippers. I'm Senior Lecturer in Law at Strathclyde Law School. My work focuses on human rights and artificial intelligence, and I'm particularly interested in the way that AI impacts on human rights, but also increasingly how we can use AI to enhance human rights protection. At Strathclyde, I'm involved in our very new postgraduate program in law, innovation and technology, and I'm sure we get a chance to talk about this a little bit more. And I've also taught on the undergraduate program at Strathclyde with modules on internet law.
John.
Thank you, Marianne, and good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for inviting me along. Essentially, I'm a technology lawyer. I have just left Lloyd's Banking Group, where I was a solicitor in their legal office for about 20 years. Early in my career, I started private practice with McCleary Spence in the company law department. Then I moved in to become an in-house solicitor. And I moved into the Scottish Water, which at that time was setting up its infrastructure. And, I couldn't tell you my source code from my object code. I just didn't know what I was doing. I was quite nervous because I was negotiating large value contracts for a new organisation. So I went off and did my master's at Strathclyde in IT law and intellectual property. And I put it to good use. So I did all the practical modules immediately because I was actually learning on the job. So I've used that master's very well over the years. I then moved to Banco Santander, where I set up a virtual legal team in Europe and in the UK, focused on technology law and IP. And then I moved after some time into Lloyd's Banking Group to do the same thing. I then moved into a risk role because we were offshoring a lot of work. Cloud computing was coming down the line. And then the last 6 years or so, I've been in the Chief Security Office as the only lawyer, looking at how contractually we can mitigate the risks arising from security breaches. So that's really me in a nutshell.
Thank you so much, John. Such an interesting career. Well, I'd just like to come back to you, Sarah, because this question is as much for me as it is for, I'm sure, some of the people are on this call. What exactly is a legal technologist, and what sort of technologies are you working with?
Yep. I think that's the question even legal technologists ask themselves.
Yeah.
What is a legal technologist? So a legal technologist, really, the way I would describe it is sometimes we are kind of the glue, almost, if you like, on transactions between sort of the legal teams, the client, the IT team, where we sort of sit in the middle where, as I've said, I've kind of got a background in law, but that is definitely not the case across the board. We have people with backgrounds, in engineering and computer science. Legal technologists come from very varied sort of backgrounds. What we do is essentially work with clients and legal teams alike to sort of help them with delivering projects using technology. So, for example, if a big bank wanted to do a big large repapering project, we would be involved in terms of sort of designing that process, how we could use technology to streamline that process. So some of the technology tools that we use are, document automation. We use GenAI now to sort of extract key data points from documents. We can use GenAI to do sort of playbook reviews, a whole range of different technology tools, which I think I will come on to maybe slightly later. But yeah, a whole range of technology tools. But GenAI is definitely the talk of the town just now.
That's just so interesting. So and I feel that you can give a slightly different slant from your experience as a chief security officer in a large financial institution. How were you using sort of data and AI technologies, or were you, or?
Yes, so it was really initially when AI, started getting talked about. It was quite a slow adoption, I would say. And I can give a good example, and that was we were using Copilot, and not that long ago we were being charged like £6,000 for each Copilot license. Within about 6 months, they were free. So the adoption of Copilot was rapid in the business. In the legal team, it was a much different story. People were being very careful around one, the security, and secondly, around the possibility of our intellectual property getting out there into the public domain. So I would say that on the legal side, we have a very restricted adoption of AI at the moment. We're partnering with people using well-known AI large language model products. But the general adoption of AI within the legal team is limited, whereas the rest of the business, it's just is being used operationally. It's being used in many different facets of the business. Yeah.
Oh, Marion, I think you're on mute.
I just muted myself and then unmuted myself. I should know better. So, the Law Society of Scotland is concerned about adoption of legal tech, and they have set out a mission statement, or the Law Scot Tech Group has a mission statement, which is all about encouraging legal tech innovation that benefits clients, practitioners, and the administration of and access to justice. They flag the need to embed legal technology and innovation into the legal profession, LLMs, syllabus at universities. Birgit, can you just tell us a little bit about the course that you manage, the LLM MSc in Law, Technology and Innovation, and also what's happening across the profession, not just at this sort of specialist masters, but also at undergraduate level, to prepare lawyers or potential legal technologists, because obviously there's lots of ways that you can go after a law degree for their future.
Absolutely. So I'm delighted to talk about this. I'm currently acting program director of our brand new postgraduate degree in law, technology and innovation. This degree builds really on a very long-standing tradition of Strathclyde, and I'm delighted to hear that John is an alumni of Strathclyde, so that's fantastic. So the rationale for this new degree, which started in September 2024, was on the one hand to refresh the program that we had previously in place, but also to offer something very distinctive. The program runs both as an LLM, as a Master's in Law, and the Master's in Law is really designed for lawyers or legal graduates who have an interest in technology and who want to upskill themselves in technology. But we also run an MSc option, which is primarily aimed at people with a background in STEM subjects, science, technology, engineering, maths, who want to gain legal knowledge. So we offer this program for graduates and professionals coming from diverse backgrounds, but all with an interest in law and with an interest in technology. So how do we do this? I think there are a couple of distinctive features of our master's program. And one of them is that we offer coding, training in coding for lawyers and legal applications, as well as statistics and machine learning. So this is really pitched at, especially at lawyers who may not have a background in technology, who want to gain hands-on experience in the technology aspect of legal technologies. Then adding to this, we obviously offer classes in law, ranging from core classes in regulating technology to innovation and leadership, IP law, cybercrime, cybersecurity, law and digital markets, law in the algorithmic state, and last but certainly not least, a class which is very close to my heart because I'm teaching on it, human rights and digital technologies. The third sort of element of our postgraduate program is the suite of summer projects that we offer. We really go above and beyond the traditional master's dissertation that probably many of you will be familiar with. So, for example, we offer in collaboration with the Data Lab Academy a project in a professional internship, professional project. We also offer an enhanced coding project for those students who've really caught the bug of coding and want to develop their skills further. And then we have, of course, the traditional dissertation and also an enhanced research project for students who want to progress to a higher degree, maybe pursue a PhD. So this pretty much covers the taught postgraduate level. But we also offer legal learning and technology at undergraduate level. For example, our fourth year honors students can access our master's classes in coding and in statistics and machine learning. And some of them have already completed the class and thoroughly enjoyed it. We also offer traditional law classes at third year and fourth year level electives in IP, in digital economy, and until recently in internet law. And then we integrate, in a sense, beginning to mainstream learning about technology across the core program. So I think this pretty much covers the kind of traditional university offering from taught postgraduate to undergraduate. And obviously there are plans ahead to develop CPD for maybe lawyers, legal professionals who are in the profession for a longer period of time and who now want to upskill themselves, but maybe are not at this stage ready or willing to do a master's.
Yeah, that's just amazing. Sarah, was there anything there that you would have, that you think, oh, I wish I'd had that when I was studying?
Yeah, definitely. I think I mean, I finished uni in 2018, so not too long ago. But even then, that was 7 years ago, and even then, this new law world still felt relatively new. I think what I would say to people is, even if, obviously what I done the traditional law route, when you do that, you have to have your kind of traditional legal modules and stuff that you have to go through, and all that is helpful. But I think over and above that, there's so much out there now. There's so much on LinkedIn. There's so much in the industry being talked about in terms of this new law technology. I mean, if we look at sort of, as I say, I'm with Addleshaw Goddard, and our trainee cohort has completely changed now, in that there's now an option for trainees to do a seat within legal technology. So it's changing in the industry. So what I would say to people, if you're still at uni, is there's so much out there to upskill yourself on. You don't need that practical experience. There's a lot of learning you can do sort of before then, if that makes sense. And I think as well, I think there's maybe a bit of a preconception that going into the legal industry, you need to know everything about law. It's not like that at all. As I've said, kind of our team is quite a good split in terms of, you've got people who have been down the traditional legal route and then decided to go into this. You've got people who are qualified lawyers. You've got people with kind of computing backgrounds, and all of that comes together to give us a team that's got so many unique perspectives and takes on things that, yeah, I would say that's another thing. Don't underestimate the sort of transferable skills you've got as well, and that you can bring to these roles.
Yeah, I think that's really good advice, and also curiosity, because it's curiosity
Yes.
that drives people to learn about the technologies that other people are using.
100%. Yeah.
Yes.
John, do you think the change? Do you think there's enough being done? Are we going fast enough to future-proof
Well,
ourselves?
I think I'm heartened by what Bridget's mentioned there about her course, because I've already started to sort of I do a little bit of tutoring at the university, and I've already been speaking to some of the professors around, getting the next cohort, as you say, ready, because well, I'll give you an example. In my recent job a couple of months ago, we were told, unequivocally, that basically, you need to understand how to code. You all need to start coding, because the expectation is that you will be at a certain level. I get involved in it was a fascinating thing at the end of last year, a hackathon, which lasted for 48 hours. And we were using AI to actually, it was Copilot we were using to identify hackers in the system. So we were feeding the code into Copilot, and it was coming up with anomalies. Fascinating stuff. I must say I was struggling day one, but then get onto it a bit more in day two. The other thing I would mention is, and this is more for Sarah, not me to discuss, but I think knowing about technology and law is really important when it comes to things like e-disclosure and e-discovery. Now, e-disclosure and e-discovery is in litigation in the courts of England is at a much more advanced stage than we have in Scotland. But it is coming to Scotland. It started, but there's going to be greater use of it. And again, as a lawyer, understanding systems and how to preserve best evidence, etc., is really important. And again, that's where your technology skills can be put to good use.
Yep, 100% echo that. I mean, I am obviously with the Scottish accent. I think when everyone hears me at work on the call, they know that when I'm speaking to technology vendors, I'm going to be pushing that Scottish angle.
Yes.
And I think there is a sort of in the industry, we do usually get to the sort of England and Wales
Yes.
solution quicker than we do get to the Scotland kind of solution. But that's not to say, we do have a lot of tools that are applicable
Yes,
to both
absolutely.
and streamline processes
Yeah.
on
Yes.
both sides. But yeah, it's a huge help. I mean, you think about doing document reviews, say 20 years ago, you would have had to go through 70,000
Yes.
documents manually, whereas now you can use, as John's saying, that e-discovery technology to even, just apply clever search terms and cut down that document population by removing duplicates or removing irrelevant
Yes.
document types, remove emails, for example. So in terms of total turnaround times and obviously fees for the client, it's a no-brainer, and we're being asked that all the time from clients now. This is now, clients are used to using technology now, so the pressure is on for us to be able to deliver what they need much more cost effectively.
Yeah, absolutely.
So just another thing that's really fresh in my mind, because last week we ran a workshop for our students on data ethics, and we had a couple of case studies there, just looking at how easily things can go awry. So this is a big issue. So do you think that the legal profession, practitioners, academics are really engaging with ethical considerations, trust in systems, the cost of not trusting in systems, the trust to organizations, the consequences to citizens? So as someone with an interest in human rights, can I just, that's not even a very good question, it's just a sort of open statement, but Birgie, have you got anything you can share with us on that topic?
Yes, it's actually a very good question, and it's a very important question. Maybe just to unpack this a little bit. So when we are talking about ethics, we are considering two aspects really of ethics. First of all, that we do no harm. But secondly, that we also ask about the beneficent aspects of the use of this technology. And then at a second level, or as a second step, we need to connect these ethics questions, or questions about ethics, with questions about power. So who benefits from new technologies, whether that be AI or other emerging technologies? Who decides what gets built and designed, and how and when and where we apply those technologies? Who's left behind? Who's being harmed? And also, do harms and benefits map onto particular groups, for example, groups with protected characteristics? And then at a third level, as a third step, I think we also need to connect ethics with law. And sometimes I think that link between ethics and law is a little bit neglected. So how can we regulate, or how should we regulate for societal benefits? Benefit for collective benefit, and by that I don't just mean that we regulate with the benefit of the majority in mind, right? But that we think very clearly and very carefully how societal structures, how democracy, how the rule of law is affected by new and emerging technologies. And these are the kind of critical questions that we, of course, teach, that we engage in university, and where a university education, whether that be at undergraduate level or at postgraduate level, is so valuable. Combined with the really important skills, John mentioned coding again, that we're of course also delivering. So these are my thoughts on ethics and on the importance of ethics. So you're muted, Marion?
I think I'll just not mute myself again. Thank you. And John, looking at this more from a sort of corporation point of view, like GDPR changed everything. How keen is the ethical awareness training focus in the organizations that you've worked with?
Yes, I think, obviously, the issue with AI is that, you know, if a business is doing, you know, 100 miles an hour and trying to get a competitive advantage, they are very attracted to what an IT vendor can do with AI. I think that, and you know, GDPR was actually at least of some help in that, you know, it required a manual intervention step when using, you know, algorithmic technologies. And that's something that, you know, many discussions I've had, and particularly in the retail space, around how we use AI. But I think it's a case of really watch this space. I think as the regulation in the UK becomes more developed, I think that there'll be stronger controls that we can perhaps look to at that point, in the same way as there is more control in Europe at the moment with their regulations. So, but I think that it all comes back to data, and maintaining data in a safe way is actually a unique selling point for an organisation, particularly a bank. Apart from the punitive fines from GDPR if you get it wrong, the public deserves to be able to trust that its data is secure, and so very obviously understand. I mean, the ethical side, we just need to keep an eye on it. There is a pressure because, I say, vendors will often try and just steal an advantage, and we need to obviously keep that foremost in our minds as well around the ethical aspects of things. Hope that answers it.
Yeah, no, thank you, Sarah. Is this a discussion that you have with your colleagues?
Yeah, absolutely. I think you'll find that most law firms now sort of have like dedicated sort of working groups and individuals sort of looking at this. Our Office of the GC and our risk colleagues, so this is definitely top of their mind. And from a client angle as well, we'll have some clients who, John just mentioned a few big banking clients there who are a bit more kind of adverse to the use of these technologies, and you'll have other clients who are a bit more open. So it's just about kind of working with the clients and figuring out what how we can comfort them and what kind of measures we take in. So, for example, we at AG, we have our own sort of AI tool, if you like, that is kind of based off of OpenAI model that we use internally. But the way that we've set that up is that we don't use that data to train the model. It's kind of, it goes away off of the system as soon as we've used it. So there's measures like that law firms are putting in place. So the law firms are looking at this technology to see how can we still leverage it and take advantage of it, but within what parameters to make sure we're comfortable and our clients are comfortable as well. But I would say that 2024 was probably the year of possibility testing, seeing what sort of sitting back and waiting to see what's going to happen. I would say that 2025 is definitely going to be more of the year of the output and the controls and that kind of thing. So yeah, exciting time to be in this space.
Definitely.
Yeah, it was fascinating. So with so much going on, I mean, we have touched on this a little bit. So I'm just going to really sort of go to you, Sarah, and say, where is your go-to for your updating and keeping up to date with the skills and feeling that you're in control of it all? Where do you go?
I'd say it's a bit of on-the-job learning. What I would say to anyone, if you're sitting and you are, from a law background, or you're not in that technical space, a lot of it is learning on the job. Like when you go into the space, you're not expected to know absolutely everything from the offset. But as I said earlier, I think there's a lot of stuff out there. There's a lot in the industry. For example, Legal Geek, if that is something that you haven't heard of, that is a big sort of conference that we have every year, and that is, people call it the sort of Glastonbury of the legal tech world. And it really is sort of, a range of vendors, a range of law firms, a range of alternative legal service providers where they all get together and we all have the same mission. It's how do we use technology to improve what we're doing and streamline what we're doing on a day-to-day basis. So I would say things like that is a great way to sort of keep up to date in terms of what's going on in the market. LinkedIn is great. That is a Bible in terms of what's going on in the market. And then I'd say myself, in terms of, technical skills, as I say, it's a lot of it's on the job learning, but it's just sometimes just figuring out what your where your skills lie and what's your niche. So for example, for me, you know, client projects, those big, fast-paced, crazy projects that come at us is definitely kind of where my skill set suit. But we have different teams within our innovation team. So you'll have some individuals who work in the sort of our more research and development pillar. So they sort of look at new technologies, assess them, test them, that kind of thing. You've got people like myself who work on our client-facing projects, and then you've got other teams who work on kind of internal efficiency work with our internal legal teams in terms of how do we get our lawyers on the ground to actually start using the technology tools. So yeah, I would say there's, even within the legal technologist space and within innovation, there's a lot of different roles within that.
That's really interesting. Another thing that just Birgit and John, what about helping leaders in the profession to understand what's happening? You know, what sort of technical training, or you know, is there a law profession leaders program? I mean, we run a data leaders program in the data lab, and you know that's across all sorts of areas. And the idea is that, you know, if you're a leader, you need to understand data technology and its application, but in a different way from someone like Sarah, who's working with technology every day.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, definitely. I think there's definitely a need for leadership training. There's just a need for CPD, continuous professional development, especially because of the speed of technological development. I think this concept of lifelong learning really applies in the field of law and tech. But maybe to add one other point. So we have spoken about equipping lawyers and law students with technical skills, with coding skills. But it's also, I think, equally important to certainly train our students and to support our students in the development of interdisciplinary skills, working with professionals from different academic backgrounds. Probably very similar to what Sarah has described in relation to her work experience, so that we're not operating in legal silos, but that, you know, lawyers can speak to computer scientists and engineers and vice versa.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the power of networks is an amazing thing. As we find at any data lab meetup I've ever been to, I've met the most varied people, from people working in life sciences to, you know, financial institutions to, you know, to small companies and startups, and they're all there, and there's this connector, and everybody's learning from each other, which I think is a really, really positive thing.
Yeah.
One other thing I just wondered about, we've talked a lot about lawyers with technology skills. What about data and AI people that will probably be sitting on this call who are thinking, oh, that sounds really interesting. How do I make that first step? How can I get a job like Sarah's got, or get a job in another legal firm that appreciates the excellence of my data and AI training, but will allow me to develop the domain knowledge, or even, I mean, we always say to our students that you're domain agnostic, but I mean that's sort of true, but to a certain extent. So Sarah, what can they do?
Yeah, 100%. It's all transferable, and as I said earlier on, do not underestimate how transferable those skills are. I think people see the word law or legal and they think, oh, I don't know, I'm not a lawyer. But so what we do at AG, and this is, you know, I think that the good thing is there's lots of new roles now that weren't even here 5 years ago. So legal technologist probably was a role, but now you've got sort of data specialists in there, you've got AI specialists in there. As I say, I've mentioned we have a sort of sub team within my wider team that focus on research and development, and there's 2 or 3 people within that team who focus solely on AI, because that's how big it is and that's how much time it takes up. So there's a whole host of roles now that weren't there 5 years, and then the same token there'll be roles in a year's time and 2 years' time that don't exist now. But in terms of opportunities, there is definitely more out there now than what there was. As I say, my background was more, I done law at uni, went into sort of paralegal route, but made sure I was going to a firm that had a new law team, so I could sort of tap into that legal technologist kind of role and learn on the job. But there's various things out there, you know, at Adlershaw Goddard, what we do is we have an innovation graduate scheme. So that opens, I think it's still open actually. But that opens every sort of January. We're on our 4th cohort now. And essentially that is sort of the legal technology equivalent of a traineeship, where they would come into the innovation team, and instead of the seats being, you know, your corporate, your real estate, that kind of thing, the seats are our sort of innovation pillars. So their client projects, their research and development, and they get a kind of well-rounded kind of area. As I say, our traineeships as well has changed recently, where people who are on the traineeships can now select to have a seat within legal technology. And I think we have maybe 6 people who were on their traditional trainee route, done a seat in legal technology, and when they finished their traineeship have came back to legal technology permanently. So there's a few different options out there. But definitely have a look at things like innovation graduate schemes and legal tech schemes like that. And as you said, networking is the key to all things. Events like Legal Geek, anything like that, try and get involved in that, because it really comes down to your network.
I mean, this is obviously a good space to be in. Sorry, John, on you go. I interrupted you, John. Were you going to say something?
No, not at all. I can add a few more ideas if you like.
Oh, please, yes.
Yeah. No, I think just to echo, I think what Sarah and Bridget are saying. I mean, to be fair, I found my master's just so useful for me in my career in so many ways. Not just, I don't know, it just opened up a whole lot of different avenues. And I think there are quite a lot of resources out there that, because you specialise in an area, you begin to understand where they are. So, for example, I'll give you a few examples. So, like in the security space, but it also actually crosses over into law, is a charity. It's called SASIG, SASIG, SASIG. And for example, they have conferences in Edinburgh on a regular basis, and often they're free to attend. I've got an involvement, so I'll declare an interest in the Society of Computers and Law, which is again is a charity. There's a whole program of seminars mainly in Edinburgh, which are free. Students again get a much reduced rate. Who else did I think about just when we were speaking there? If you are interested in things like knowledge management platforms, well, the Law Society has just launched one, which you can go and have a look around. And there's always a great source I find is people like, if you just go onto their websites and look at Google and Amazon, because they're selling a lot of these products. So they've got some amazing free information. It's all there for you. And then the final one I came across quite recently, again, it's quite security oriented, and I'm sure many people on the call will have heard of it. It's an organization called ISC2 or ISC squared. And the reason I mention that is because they actually give cybersecurity certifications for free. So you can go online and do their modules, and you can get some certification for free. Obviously, they want you to buy more, but nevertheless, it was something that a technologist told me about recently, so I've just wanted to share that with you.
No, that's fantastic. I never underestimate the power of networks. I mean, within the Data Lab community, there's the opportunity to be a mentor or be a mentee.
Yes.
So that's the way, and we do have. I mean, obviously, we've got 6,000 people in the community, but you can put a call out, and there are legal firms represented in the community. So it's always it's just always good. Information is everything.
Exactly right. Yeah.
So, I mean, we've talked a lot about the current situation, which I think is really uplifting, and I feel very much more confident and positive about the direction that the legal profession is going in now. But 5 years' time, who knows what's going to happen in 5 years' time? Things have changed so enormously in the last 5 years. What will your job look like in 5 years, Sarah?
That's difficult to say. To be honest, I'm hoping in 5 years' time our job will be easier in terms that there'll be a lot more people on this journey with us, and there'll be a lot less adversity to these things, and Gen AI won't be, such a scary, when we speak about Gen AI just now with certain clients, I'm definitely treading on eggshells talking about it, or I'm disguising it as something else to try and not scare people off. So I'm hoping that in 5 years' time, that side of things and the general sort of conversation around things will be a bit easier. But I think I don't know. I mean, again, if you look at what we were doing 5 years ago, there's some projects I worked on 5 years ago, and I think, wow, why were we sitting doing that when we now have Gen AI or different tools that didn't exist back then? I think it'll be more, I think we'll just see it going to that next level again. So in terms of, AI right now, we are seeing it as a sort of helping hand, and it's kind of like more like an assistant. I think the involvement and what we can get out from it will drastically change. I'm hoping from a Scottish perspective, all my harping on at vendors about getting Scotland up to speed will also have paid off. So yeah, who knows in the next 5 years, but I'm hoping from a Scottish perspective we will be kind of have more technology available to us, and that's Gen AI is great in that sense. We would have had AI tools before Gen AI that we had to train up on, sort of like England and Wales kind of terms, for example. We would then need to retrain it if it came to Scotland or Ireland, whereas with Gen AI we don't have that issue now. So we're already getting there. But yeah, who knows? We'll wait and see.
Birgit, have you anything to add?
Yes, I do actually. If we stay on the current trajectory, I would think and hope that in 5 years' time, the development and acquisition of legal tech skills will be much more firmly embedded in legal training at undergraduate and diploma and also postgraduate level, more so than it already is, as well as an understanding of regulation. But in addition to that, I would anticipate that we see a further increase in specialization in particular areas of law and tech, whether that is IP or cybersecurity law or AI and human rights, or data protection, etc., etc. So I think these trends will continue. A broader understanding across the law student cohorts of legal tech skills and regulation, but also more specialization in the wider field of law and tech.
So John, just sort of last question on this topic. Do you think that there's a danger that some firms are going to be left behind?
Yeah, it's just I think you were reading my mind there, actually. Yeah, I think so. I mean, I genuinely think so, because I think that to get things right in this area is a huge investment. And, I'm aware of some firms in the past who invested very heavily but couldn't get the return from the client. And what happens is then you have to take away a system and then you've got a disgruntled client. So it's a very difficult position for a law firm, I think, to be in, to choose. It's a bit like, what format do you go with your DVD or whatever. I think that the other thing, so I think client expectations are definitely going to get much higher, without a doubt. I think the other thing that's coming along is, quantum computing. And when you harness the power of quantum computing with AI, it brings it into a totally different fields. At the moment, quantum computing is only limited availability simply because of the cost. But it is becoming, in the next couple of years, it's going to become, one of my colleagues, he's got his own quantum computer. So it is actually going to become mainstream. And I think when you harness that with AI, it's going to make, I honestly don't know 5 years' time what's going to happen. I think that the regulation is getting much tighter, and it's analogous with the fine regime under GDPR. So again, as soon as something has got fines attached to it at such a high level, then it becomes right up at the top of the board's considerations around risk. That will get the sharp focus, and hopefully when you get that focus, it's helpful from an ethical point of view as well. But unfortunately, when it comes to, certainly my background is financial services, and as soon as something's got a huge fine attached to it, it becomes very topical at the boardroom table. And I think that's what's going to happen with AI. I mean, it's already happening, but it's more so. Yeah.
I notice we do have some questions here, so maybe we could come to these. First from Alex A. Do you think AI is making legal processes more accessible to the average person? I find it incredibly helpful for contacting organisations like my local council, neighbours and property management company, especially when dealing with government services. I'm getting much better results from using AI tools. Anyone?
I think I totally agree with that. I'm totally aligned with that, and I think that's a positive benefit about AI. The only thing I would venture is that you've got to be very careful of the sources of how AI is coming to its conclusions, because unfortunately I've seen some AI tools coming out with some false negatives, and you just got to be very careful. And I think that from a law firm perspective is what's driving the investment, is actually making sure that getting the accuracy right, obviously, or the law firm can get sued, frankly. So I think that I agree with the sentiment entirely, and I think it will get better, but at the moment I still think we have to be quite careful with it.
I would echo John's comments. These are tools, but they, in my view, should not replace, for example, high quality professional legal advice. So for me, the opportunities are to use those tools in a way that enhance our needs, that enhance our well-being. But I think we need to exercise caution in when and where we're going to use those tools.
Thank you. Now here's another interesting question from Michael Shaw, who I think is Michael. If it's the Michael Shaw I think of, he's one of our students. So hi, Michael. Scotland being a smaller legal jurisdiction, I can't say that, sorry, create particular challenges. For example, legal LLMs exist, but non-trained for Scottish cases, only English Wealth or UK Supreme Court cases.
I can take a first go at that. I think, to be honest, we're seeing the opposite. So Scotland being a smaller legal jurisdiction in terms of some tools and some capabilities definitely presents particular challenges. So if you take sort of the real estate kind of world as an example, you have the land registry, which applies to England and Wales, and there's a lot of technology vendors out there who have APIs connected to the land registry, and they can make that whole sort of downloading of title registers, title plans, analysis of that data extraction, make that really seamless. What we currently don't have at the moment is that Scottish equivalent. Obviously from a client perspective, a client is thinking, well, why does it matter sort of where my asset sits? Surely whatever process we're following, I should be able to follow that kind of regardless of where in the UK it sits. And it's just because of, there's a few different things. There's a few kind of API limitations. Obviously with Scotland, we've got the Registers of Scotland, we've also got the SASIN's register, so they're slightly behind in terms of getting all that sort of up and running. But as I said kind of early on, it's definitely an agenda that we are pushing with vendors from a Scottish perspective. But I would say on Gen AI, that's actually turned the dial for us, because GenAI is all about your prompting. Like you'll see on LinkedIn, as AG, we do a lot of talk about sort of prompting and refining your prompts. And we published a paper a few months back kind of on our findings and our approach to GenAI, and we found that we were able to increase the accuracy of these LLMs by roughly 25% just by focusing on the prompts that we use and refining those prompts and asking follow-up questions and things like, you know, bizarre things like using emotive things. So saying to the LLM, you know, please try your hardest on this, or if you don't do your best on this, I might lose my job. We were seeing like the accuracy when you were asking questions like that were so much higher. So we are very much in that, we have been in that space of just trying to figure out what works for us and how we can get that accuracy as high as possible.
Thank you. But here's another interesting question. This is about legal templates. This attendee says that he's had to pay for legal templates and lawyer consultations were incredibly expensive. Why are they so costly and inaccessible to the average person? Now I can generate excellent results using AI. What are your thoughts on this, on how this will change the legal industry? Very good. Is that one for you?
Yes, I can answer that. In a sense, it relates back to the comment I made earlier on. So I would perhaps exercise a note of caution there. I think there is a danger that perhaps high-level professional legal advice, as the question has pointed out, may not be accessible to the average person, but that the legal advice provided by AI may actually not be high quality. So I'm a little bit torn on this issue, and I'm not fully convinced that replacing human legal advice with advice provided by AI is the way to go.
I think what I would just add to that is just that I think from our perspective anyway, we are seeing that as helping us get half the way there. So, you know, self-serving is a very real challenge, and we get asked from clients about that and pitches all the time just now in terms of what can we do from a self-serve perspective, what could we get ourselves, or what could we set up in advance in line with agreed criteria that we can then, you know, we don't need to get legal advice every time, and that could be templates, or it could be, as you say, it could be various things. But yeah, that is definitely like a very real sort of challenge that we face just now, and we are being asked all the time in terms of what we can do in terms of self-serve. It's never gonna, as you say, completely do away with but it's more letting lawyers focus on the more strategic legal work or the bigger issues at hand, and we can sort of automate as much as possible with review, of course. Like all of this is with sort of review, but we can sort of automate and get ourselves to a further point than what we would have before.
Yeah, I mean, there's a question there that I thought was quite interesting, which I think was really directed at you, Sarah, about what Gen AI, but it's disappeared. It was about.
I think it was to do with use cases. I think
Yes, yeah.
seen that. I can't remember the rest of the question, so sorry whoever was that. But I think it was around kind of use cases. So as I say, we have a published RAG report which is available kind of on LinkedIn for you to have a look at. But our use case in that we are using is around M&A due diligence. So basically how we use GenAI to sort of carry out like a first pass through a data room by applying, say, specific queries in the context of a deal. So we might, you know, before we do a full review of kind of all these legal documents, we maybe just want to see like just get an overview of sort of the types of things we're dealing with. Now that might be really helpful, you know, if we are pitching or pricing for a piece of work where the client's like, okay, we're not quite there yet, we don't know what we're going to instruct, but could you give us an idea of sort of what these deals contain, or give us a rough idea of what we're sort of looking at here. You know, we as well are doing things with clients where in the past this wouldn't have been a thing, but a tech only review where there is no lawyer input, and obviously that's caveated from up front, but it's to give clients insights that they wouldn't otherwise be able to access. So using GenAI to extract key bits of information in bulk across whole portfolios or whole document sets, and it's getting clients further and giving them more insights on what they would have had before.
Thank you. I think I think this is the last question we've got time for. It's from Michael again. Will high street firms manage to keep pace with AI developments?
I think, yeah, maybe I can answer that. I think that it's a little bit analogous with like cloud computing. I know it's different, but it's a brand new technology, and I think that with some smaller firms, they took guidance from the Law Society, for example, on cloud computing environments and what, from a risk perspective, was a good idea and what was not. And I suspect that the Law Society will be coming out with further AI guidance. And so for smaller firms, they will be able to look to that. There's also, when it comes to large investments, there's also the opportunity for small firms to collaborate with each other, and buy on a multiple basis. But again, it's down to, and as Sarah mentioned earlier, the accuracy and the domain of the domain, and that again can only sometimes be achieved on a much bigger commercial basis. There are some commercial models out there of AI which are available just now, but that are huge value, huge costs that a small firm couldn't afford, but they might be able to afford a sub-licensing type arrangement if there was enough of them to get together. And so those are sort of models that might be driven out in future. Yeah.
Well, thank you very much. I think we've got 2 minutes. I think a lot of people will be needing to rush back to work or into the kitchen to get their lunch, which is what I'll be doing next. But that was a really fabulous panel. Thank you so much, Birgit, Sarah, and John, for your insights, for sharing your experience, your top tips. I think there's lots and lots of takeaways here about a profession that is in transition, like we all are, and that can only be good. Some serious issues around ethics, but I think we've had a good chat about that. Thank you so much, and can I just say thanks again to our fantastic audience for some brilliant questions. I hope we've answered them all. Thank you very much, everyone, and have a great afternoon. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks everyone. Bye.